Hello and welcome to today's Tangle. I'm Amy Lilien-Harper and I am a CZT, a certified Zentangle teacher, and I am also a member of the staff at the Wilton Library. I work in the children's department and we are going to do some tangling today. So the tangle we're going to do today is one of my all-time favorites. It's a little bit difficult. It does require a lot of concentration and focus when you first learn it. Once you really know how to do it, it's very relaxing because it's extremely repetitive. And it is called Paradox. There's more than one way to do it, but I'm going to go with triangle because I think that's the easiest. But today, as always, we're going to start off by just taking 1 minute to take a deep breath, center ourselves, and be appreciative for all the wonderful things we have with us today. As I have in earlier videos, I'm going to be using one of these small tiles. It's called a bijou. You can see how small it is because there's my hand right there. And I'm going to do that as usual because it allows me to do a full tile in a shorter period of time. So these videos can be a little shorter. I have my tools with me today. So here is my Zentangle pencil. It is a soft lead pencil. And this is my tortillon, or my blending tool. And last but not least, I have my pen, and this is my Micron 01, which is my pen of choice. You can see on the top it says 01, and it also says that here. Another pen you can use, which I do also like, is a Micron PN. It's got a slightly different kind of tip, as you can see. But for today, we're going to go with the Micron 01. And we are going to start off as we would normally start off any Zentangle by doing our 4 corner dots. So I'm going to make a dot in each of the 4 corners of my tile. And you'll notice as I'm doing this that I have a tendency to rotate my tile. That's because you want to keep your hand in the most comfortable position you can. So rather than trying to twist your hand around to make something work, you want to move the tile. It's one of the great things about these small square tiles. Even the traditional style tile, which is a little bit larger than this, it's still small enough and square, and it does allow you to do that rotation. So I've made my 4 corner dots. I made them nice and light because they're not really that important. They're just a little bit of a guide, and we're going to make them sort of disappear. And I'm going to just connect my 4 corner dots into a squarish shape. We never assume that we're making a perfect anything in Zentangle because we are not perfect and we can't make perfect squares or perfect circles or perfect anything. So it's a square-ish shape. And then today I'm actually going to do, even though I'm working on such a small tile, I am going to go ahead and do a string, which is how we divide up our space. This is a really simple string. I'm just going to draw one line from this corner to that corner, and I'm going to draw another line from that corner to that corner. In a minute, you're going to see why I did this. So your tile should now look like this. It should have just a sort of a square, 2 lines, a diagonal line down one way and then a diagonal line down the other way. I know it's a little hard to see because I did it so lightly, but you will be able to see it as I start to work, I promise. And I'm going to just make sure that I'm auto-focused here effectively. Yeah, there we go. And so now I'm going to take my pen. I'm going to put my pencil aside. I'm done with that for now. I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to actually, this is something we often don't do, but I am going to do that for this particular tile. I'm going to actually just trace what I have just done. So I'm going to go back over my original lines because we want these triangles to work in. So I'm going to just finish that off, and now I have that sort of square shape. And then I'm going to go back over these lines I went down the middle, and if you don't stay perfectly on them, you can see I didn't right up here. That does not matter. Like I said, we do these original lines nice and light because they're just a guide. They're not there to be permanent. And now you can see that what I have is 4 sort of triangular shapes in here. And that is what I'm looking for because this tangle works in very specific geometric shapes. And the triangle is my favorite one to work in. So we're going to start with a triangle. Now the key to this tangle is rotating your tile and doing it consistently in the same direction. If you rotate the wrong direction, it's going to throw you off. So what you're going to do is you're going to choose one of these 4 triangles. I'm just going to start on this one because it's closest to my hand. And I am going to start at the top of the triangle, and I'm going to draw a line that just very slowly comes out just a little. So you see I did just like a little bit of an angle. I almost retraced the top and then came down at an angle. Okay, now I'm going to rotate my tile, and now I'm going to start at the end of this line that I just made, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So I'm going to again make like a little bit of an angled line, and now I'm going to turn my tile again, and I'm going to go to where I ended, and I'm going to very carefully do the same thing. So I've now basically made another triangle that's like a little bit smaller. And now I'm going to rotate my tile again. I'm back to the direction I started on, and I'm going to do it again. And the thing about this tangle, which is so interesting, is that and I'm going to continue to do that. So you see I've now turned my tile again. I start from the top. I draw an angle, a slightly angled straight line down. I rotate. I start at the top. I draw a slightly angled line down, and I keep going. And you notice that I keep turning my tile. Now, once you become really good at this tangle, you can do it without rotating your tile, but I don't recommend it until you're really, really comfortable with it, because it's very easy to lose track of where you are. And you can see that the distance between my angles are not identical from piece to piece, and that doesn't really matter. You just want to make sure you keep rotating so you keep track of where you are, because you don't want to go in the wrong direction or from the wrong one. Now, of course, this is Zentangle, so there's no mistakes, but this particular tangle does really have a sort of routine, a pattern that you want to try to follow. So you just keep going. You keep rotating your tile, drawing a sort of an angled line, rotating your tile. You just keep going from where you stopped each time. You see that one came out a little cockeyed. I'm sorry about that. And then there's another one. And you keep going. And eventually, you're going to sort of close it up. You're going to get so small with all these rotations that it's going to kind of disappear. And you're kind of going to just run out of space. And that's what's going to happen right now. I think that's probably good. Okay, so now I have completed my first paradox, and what you'll notice is that I started out with all straight lines, but it almost seems to have a curve now. And that's one of the things that's really interesting about this particular tangle, is that due to the way it works, you end up with this very cool meta pattern. Now, once you've done one, and we're going to do one of these in each of these 4 quadrants, you will get there's 2 different meta patterns you can create. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one of them in this quadrant, and then I'm going to create the other one in this quadrant. So I'm going to do the one that I actually like best in this quadrant, but this is the harder one to do. So actually, I'm going to start with the one that's easier to do, just to give you a sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly what I just did before. So I'm going to start the same way. So I started at the top of this corner. I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to start at the top of this corner. Now I am going to start drawing my lines. Now I'm going to rotate my tile, and I'm going to draw another line. I'm going to rotate my tile. And the lines can be your angles can be really small and narrow, or they can be a little wider. Mine tend to not come out perfectly consistent. I try to go for them to be a little narrow, but every now and again my pen kind of takes over and I end up with a wider than I initially intended. That's okay. And actually, for our purposes today, it's fine because it means I'll finish it a little more quickly. So there's only so many times you need to watch me rotate my tile and keep doing this. But you're going to see as I do this that a pattern is starting to appear where the two meet. The other thing that's really cool about this tangle is that as you're doing it, your triangles disappear. When you're completely done, if you show it to somebody, they will not think that you made, if you tell them this was all made out of triangles, they're gonna look at you like you're nuts because it doesn't look like it is. The triangles themselves disappear, the straight lines sort of disappear, the whole thing kind of turns into this completely different pattern, despite the fact that what you're doing is really just drawing a whole lot of triangles. So you see, you've created this sort of funny, like almost like a column shape. And the way we did that one was we did the first one and then we rotated and we went and we started at the top and went down and went exactly the same way. Okay, so now I'm going to create a different meta pattern from this one to this one. To do that, I have to go in the opposite direction. So originally I was going this way and I was going this way, right? So I'm gonna work in this quadrant. So originally I was going this way. Instead of going this way, I'm gonna actually go the opposite direction. So instead of coming down from this corner, I'm gonna come down from this corner. And I'm gonna rotate, and you can tell this is not my natural direction. I wanna go the other direction, but I'm gonna ignore my natural incline and go this direction. The reason I'm doing this is because I actually really love the other meta pattern you create. So I'm doing exactly the same thing I was doing before. I'm just rotating in the opposite direction. I'm starting from the opposite corner and I'm rotating in the opposite direction. So I'm just going to keep going and rotating. Oops, that didn't come through. And then I'm going to go from my latest one, my latest corner, come down at an angle. I'm going to go from this corner. I'm going to come down at an angle. I'm going to keep doing that. Oops. See, I told you I don't like to go this direction. I really have to think about it when I go this way. The other way, I just keep going. But you just keep rotating. And you can actually do this exact same thing in a square shape, and you'll get an equally cool effect. And it's all this, it works the same way. You just start from one corner and come down at an angle, and then rotate and start from the corner and come down at an angle. And you just keep doing that. So it really doesn't matter how many sides the shape you're working with has. It will work no matter what. But I learned it first as a triangle, and I actually like doing it best as a triangle. I think it was originally invented with triangles in mind, and then they started playing with other ways you could do it. But it took me a while to get my mind around it. So once I got used to doing it in triangle, it's hard to switch. Okay, so now you can see we have this original cool shape that we created, which was like a column. And then we have this other cool shape, which is like a fan. And now we've got one corner left. And what's going to happen, I believe, is that because we've got the two different directions here, it's still going to do the same thing. So we're going to have one fan and one column. But let's find out. I'm going to go back to the direction I tend to prefer. So I'm going to start this direction and we'll see what we get. So I'm going to start from this corner and I'm going to go angle down. And I'm going to rotate. And I'm going to angle down. I'm going to rotate. Angle down. And I'm just going to keep doing that. Keep rotating. Keep drawing those straight lines at an angle, always rotating and always starting from wherever you stopped most recently. So whichever line you just finished, that is the top of your next line. So I finished here and I come down. Then I turn it, I start here and I come straight down. So once you get used to it, you just sort of know what to do, because all you're really doing is drawing a slightly angled line, rotating and starting from where you just stopped. And now if I had either done all 4 quadrants going the same direction, or rotated so that I was going one way on the first quadrant, the other way on the next, and gone all the way around that way, I would have gotten the same meta pattern throughout. But because I alternated and I did some going one way and some going the other way, you can see that what I got was 2 columns and 2 fans, which is pretty cool. Now, if I had done, I have one here that I finished. Nope, this one actually came out that same way. So you can see that I have these 2 different, and you can see how the triangles we started with have pretty much disappeared, as have the straightness of the lines. It really looks like everything's curved now. Now we're going to finish this off by doing some shading, which is super, super fun on this one, because it also gives it this really, really cool effect. So I'm going to grab myself a shading tool, and we're going to just have a good time with this. So here we go. And I'm going to take my pencil. And as always, I'm going to hold my pencil kind of tucked into my palm. You don't want to hold it right up and down like you normally would when you're writing, because you really want to use the side of your pencil. So, and these pencils are nice and small. So I just tuck it right into my palm here. So it almost disappears. If you use your pencil a lot, you'll find that you sharpen it down until it gets really tiny, and it will really tuck in there. But I'm using a newer one, so you can see what they're supposed to look like. My old ones are pretty worn down. And it's super easy to shade this. It really just tells you how to shade it. What you do is you actually retrace the sort of lines where each thing met. But all you really need to do is look, and you can see that there are these sorts of curves, and that's what we want to emphasize, is the way those curves have appeared. So you just find those curves, which is where all your pen lines ended, basically. And you just follow those curves one after another. And I like to follow them all. I like to emphasize the whole thing. There's that fan shape. And then there's the column shape. And if you play with this, you'll see that you probably have a tendency to end up with one or the other shape. Either you have a tendency to switch back and forth or not. And if you need to, if you want to think about it, and now I'm taking my blending tool, my tortillon, and I'm just sort of spreading that lead that I just put down. I'm just spreading it out just a little bit and really just softening it, because I don't really want to draw it out too much, because I want to keep that contrast. So I'm just using that lead to sort of emphasize those lines where everything comes together. It also, every time you use your pencil, if you use it effectively, you can often give depth to your art. You give it sort of a more of a 3-dimensional effect, which is really cool. So I'm just gonna, and you see how all I'm really doing is I'm just spreading that lead a little bit, softening it up, which gives everything kind of a shadowed effect. I'm gonna do this sometimes. I'm like, did I shade everything? Did I miss anything? You can't really overdo this part. You can put on too much lead, but you can't really overdo the sort of just simple. Okay, and there you go. So you can see what I've done now is I've completely emphasized the meta pattern. And if you show this to someone and say, I made this is all triangles, they'll look at you like they won't believe you, really, honestly. Because it really doesn't look like there's triangles there at all. In fact, it's very difficult to even find. We know I originally started with a triangle, so originally there was a line that went down here, and a line that went down here, but If you didn't know that, it'd be really hard to find them. So that's paradox. So once you've gotten to this point, as always, you want to go back to your pen and you want to just find a spot to put your chalk, your signature. I'm going to put mine right here. Doesn't really matter what direction this one goes. I mean, you can take it and look at it and decide which way you like it best, but it's sort of, because the way I did it, it just kind of goes every direction. And then you're going to turn it over and you're going to sign your name and then put the date, and which I believe is the 27th. And the name of this tangle is Paradox. Sometimes they call it Rick's Paradox, but I think Paradox is the more correct one. So there it is, and that's Paradox. I hope you enjoyed your tangle of the day, and I look forward to tangling with you again.